Well, I am John Jordan. I'll be speaking on the time I actually finished the 100 Days of Code Challenge. A little bit about me. I started out in healthcare. Currently, though, a project manager for a utility construction company, and I started coding mainly in the fall of 2018. So this is kind of my journey from that time. I kind of put it as round one, 100 Days of Code, publicly committed on October 9th, 2018. I was following the freeCodeCamp responsive web design track, and I also picked up a Udemy web development bootcamp course because it said if you buy this course, you'll know everything you need to be a web developer, and it's only $9.99, so I couldn't resist. So I picked that up just to hedge my bets. And I also went to my first Techlahoma meetup, and it was a job fair, October 29th, 2018. So how I kind of started was I sped through the HTML, CSS sections. The tutorial would kind of demonstrate something, then I would do the same, and didn't have any problems with that. I'm pretty good at following instructions. But when I got to the final projects, I got a little overwhelmed with them. It doesn't, tell you do this and that. They give you the project, and you kind of have to organize your own code and piece that all together. And so that was a little bit of a struggle for me. So I kind of tried my best to work through the 5 different projects, and I didn't manage to complete them. So I just kind of jumped over to the JavaScript section and struggled there as well, and ended up, I guess, day 49, as it shows there. I stopped my coding journey, kind of got frustrated. So that was my round one. It wasn't till the next year, May 1st, 2019, I started second round of 100 Days of Code. I said, all I can say to procrastination is not today. And that was kind of funny in hindsight, because it was about another month and a half before I actually got back on Twitter to document anything, and kind of fumbled my way through a little bit longer before stopping again in July of that summer. So round 2 wasn't near as successful as even my first round, but here we are at round 3, another common time for resolutions. The beginning of January, I decided I was going to take another stab at this, and so I started off again and started back with the freeCodeCamp, reviewing the past material. Had to do that because it'd been 6 months before I'd done anything, and so if you don't use it, you lose it kind of mentality. I didn't remember much of a lot of the syntax and how to do anything. So I went back and reviewed and got to the projects again, and this time I actually succeeded. I finally completed the responsive web design certificate. I'm still not very happy with the way they look, but I did meet all the requirements, so I do have the certificate to prove that. And from that point, I continued on to the JavaScript, where I kind of jumped back and forth between the freeCodeCamp and the Udemy course that I had. Whenever I'd get to a sticking point, I'd hop over to the other curriculum and go as far as I could. And when I struggled, then I'd go back to the other one, and kind of went back and forth in that manner. So didn't get too far on it. And then I eventually stopped counting the days at some point. I continued to code off and on, but the turning point was kind of when I got involved more with the freeCodeCamp Oklahoma group, which brings me to the round 4. It started off actually with a weekly progress group. Some of us kind of made this group on Slack, and it was a way to hold each other accountable, to check in and kind of report what we was working on that week and what our goals were for the week. And after a little while, several of us had actually started doing the 100 Days of Code. So I jumped on board and officially started my round 4 on August 7th, and working my way through that. This time I succeeded in completing the 100 days. So it was a pretty good feeling. My version was not as strict as the official 100 days. I should probably mention that. But I needed a format that I could follow, that I could be consistent with, and not feel like if I, missed one of the parameters that it set forth, that I was failing and might as well stop again. So I found a format that worked for me, where I could still have a day off or miss, and then come back and pick up where I left off and continue on. So some of the things that um, I learned going through this process, through the 4 rounds, or actually through this 100 days, I started with the JavaScript. I used the Odin project, which is a kind of a compilation of resources that you can use to learn some front-end development. But I quickly moved on to Python after a few weeks. I tried this out and it really clicked with my brain a little bit more than JavaScript was. So I ended up continuing the rest of the 100 Days of Code Challenge doing Python and some of the related things with that, including Django, and Tkinter. Django, I went through the Django Girls curriculum, and I looked at a course on the lynda.com website about Tkinter and was able to make a small little user interface for an app that I developed with Python. I also participated in the Hacktoberfest this year and completed the pull request required. Still waiting on my t-shirt, but I'm sure it'll eventually make it my way. As I mentioned, I did build several small little apps, little games or utility apps. It was fun to make. And I completed my first API call using the Google Books API. I was able to gather the information, book summaries, titles, authors, and things for a small app I was playing with. And finally learn more about networking and how important it is to be networking, that it's never too early, even when you're just starting coding, to kind of get your name out there and let others know who you are, what you're working on, what you're interested in. So that was another thing that I thought was beneficial in my 100 days that I learned. Some of the takeaways I would say from going through this is that consistency is key. A quote from James Clear I liked was, "Most people need consistency more than intensity. Intensity makes a good story, but consistency makes progress." And I think I did have some intensity in my previous attempts, but the consistency was not there. I would lose focus and gradually was not making progress during those attempts. And something that helped me maintain that consistency is finding a source of support. For me, it was Techlahoma's, the Slack channel, the support group that I was in. I could come in there and kind of, I knew somebody was going to ask how I was doing, what I was working on, what goals I was working on for the week, which kind of helped me maintain some accountability there. It could be Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever you're most comfortable with, that you have a group of people that knows that can support you and check in on you and hold you accountable to staying on task and making progress each time. And finally, to have fun with it. If you're not having fun, then you're a lot more likely to give up or to step away to some other venture. But it doesn't have to be, really upsetting, frustrating, where you're throwing things. Some days may be more frustrating than others as you're learning to code, but try to enjoy the process as much as you can. Find things that interest you. If you're beginning coding and you're learning a language and it's not going the way you thought it would, try another language. Jump over to something that you know that is interesting to you, that you can spend some time learning and enjoying the process. Hopefully you're spend more time on the enjoying side than the frustrating side in these two depictions. But that was kind of my journey where I'm at. I'm continuing to code, not under the following days thing, but continuing to make progress and consistently be in my computer working on my skills at the moment. So that's all I got for you.